Hi guys, meteorologist Lindsey Slater here. This is your space weather update. A pretty active sun going on right now. So I do want to show you the D wrap region. So this is the D region absorption. This is basically when you have a flare. A flare is associated with radio blackouts. And we had one last night. I believe it was around 9-10 o'clock Central Time. And look at that blackout right there. R3 radio blackout. This was over kind of like Asia, Indonesia, Northern Australia region. You can kind of see that, and then the flare kind of dies down, the radio blackout kind of decreases, and you can really see that through time, how it just kind of goes away. But we are still looking at, I mean, that is pretty impressive, as you see right there. It really peaks right over the Indonesia region. So we did have this R3. It was an R3 class flare. Remember, flares are associated with radio blackouts. Sometimes you can get an X class. This was an X class flare, so it's higher up here. I believe it was like a 1 point, right there, 1.19 on March 30th at 3:30 UTC. So this was 9:30 at night. Popped up right there, and it gets into that X class. X10 is pretty wild. This is an exponential. So this area had been popping off some M flares, some C flares, but then boom, we had that X class. Had that happen last night. Now, not all the time does a flare give you an actual CME. Now, that sometimes can happen. This case, it looks like it did launch a CME. So I'm going to go to solar activity, look at latest CMEs, and I believe the one we're looking for is, I think it's this one. And you can see this is right there, that flare popped up right there. So this is what we look at to see if a CME, a coronal mass ejection, was actually launched. And it looks like, whew, yeah, that's a big one right there. You see how it kind of has this like halo effect as it goes around the sun, and then poof. And then we can also see a little bit of what we call the snow around it. So I don't believe we got to any kind of what we call S storms or radiation storms. I don't think we got to that point because this is what that means, solar radiation. So we didn't see any of that going on, but you can see a strong X-class flare. This, not that one, this right here. So the SWPC, Space Weather Prediction Center, is showcasing that right there. X-class flux eruption, the expectation they talk about, the impacts. Now remember, SWPC's website, and when we talk about this, is not meant for aurora chasers. Yes, there's a whole section on auroras right here. If you go to products and data, or I'm sorry, dashboards, you can look at, there's an entire aurora section. But what SWPC is doing is it's protecting infrastructure. That is the most important thing when it comes to space weather. Yes, auroras are beautiful, but the impacts from something like a CME or flares, these can impact infrastructure, your electricity, your energy. Those types of things are so important when it comes to generating power. When you have radio blackouts, that's like ham radio operators, or in the event of severe weather, you may not get signals because of things like this. That is what this is intended for. But a beautiful side effect is also the aurora chances. Hang on one second. My cat is eating something. That's mine. She was eating one of my ginger chews. Not sure how you got it though, girl. Anyway, okay, let's talk a little bit about what this looks like. I have downloaded Helioviewer. This is a beautiful product. I want you to keep your eyes peeled right here. This is the region we're watching. This is the active region. I'm going to hit play, and right here, keep your eyes peeled right about, hang on, it's almost there. Boom, there it is. We can zoom in too, which is actually really cool. I can rotate the sun. Look at that X flare. I'm going to go back. Right there, you see it's ready to go, and we have things that are launching out of that. So we can watch it as it, I'm going to put it into center frame here. We can actually watch this thing. Look at the activity, just all the arcs, the arcades, and then we get right about there. That was the launch. That was the X-class flare. What I can do is I can turn on different sections of the sun so we can see what it looks like in other views as well. I mean, just stunning. Right next to a coronal hole, no less. So when you see these flares go up, you can actually see these dimming regions forming on the around it. So we have a dimming region there, we have a dimming region there after this thing launched over. Just incredible. We can zoom the map out a little bit as I rotate the sun. We also do have quite a bit of coronal holes as well. Let's pull up the 211, which is the map you want to use for coronal holes. Whoa. A lot of data that's loading, so I'm going too quickly here. Let's turn you off. Come on, 211. There you are. and this is the perfect one to showcase coronal holes. So there's a south one there at the pole. We have a little guy over there on the west limb, and then and again, remember, when it comes to looking at the sun, it's a little bit backwards. So east is west, west is east, because the sun is the entity. Earth is not the entity. It is the sun looking at Earth. And that's why we say over here is the east limb, over here is the west limb. Most of the time when you have flares center disk or west, that is when we have an Earth directed potential. So when we have things happening that are in the western limb, western disk, that is when a lot of space weather folks get a little bit more excited, because that's likely an Earth impact. But you got a little coronal hole there in the middle as well, which what that does is it actually provides a fast speed stream going towards the Earth. So we have a launch from that guy right there in combination with a fast stream. So it's going to grab it and pull it faster towards Earth. So this may get to Earth a lot quicker. But is it Earth directed? Those are some of the big questions we have. So we need to look at Enlil, which is basically what we use to see, where did my Enlil go? I lost it. There it is. This is going to be a model, like a weather model, that tells us whether or not that CME right there, you see it, that was launched, if it can actually make it to Earth. It does look like this is more of a glancing blow that would likely arrive as early as tomorrow, because it's in combination with that high speed stream. It's basically like the CME hopped on a freeway versus, going down a regular street. So versus it going down the street at 40 miles an hour, it hopped up on the Autobahn and now it's going like 700 miles an hour. So that's why it could get here a lot faster. But it does look like this is a glancing blow. Might be a little bit too far away from Earth to have impacts, but it will be interesting to see. It does look like we could see the shock as early as, the 31st at noon. But here's the key. This is a good model that highlights this activity. However, we don't know how fast it's going, what direction it's going, until it hits stereo A and L1. These are some satellites that basically tell us some of these trajectories. And that's what that little dot is right there. Earth is the green dot. I believe stereo A or L1, one of these two, is this right here. So we need to wait to see what it does when it hits those places. Then we can decide and actually time out what time it gets here. So it's going to be very interesting to watch what happens with this from that flare. It is a very active region. I'm going to go and show you the solar synoptic map, which is what the SWPC folks are using every day. And so this is where that flare came up right there next to a coronal hole. So it does look like there is a 10% chance of another X-class flare and potentially a proton event, another 10% chance. So we'll see how this pans out, but we're definitely keeping an eye on that region. There's several other active regions we should watch too, and that's upper here in the upper, basically the northwest limb of the sun. So we're going to keep a very close eye on this for you guys. I will have any updates, and I'll post on my Facebook page and stuff as we get more information coming in. But yeah, X-class flare from last night produced a CME that could have an Earth direction. We'll just see how it all pans out. Once it hits one of those satellites, we can get more data out of it. You guys have a good day. I'll see you soon.